Right, going to continue with Aries again. So, if obviously it's Aries is ruled by Mars. So if you have Mars in your first house, you know that this person is independent, and it's also because it's the first house of the zodiac. They quite like to work on their own as well and do things on their own. They don't necessarily need to be around people. There can be Mars in the first house. Obviously, it's the ruler of the first house in the first house, because so it will definitely create a Raja Yoga. It is also the ruler of the eighth house. So eighth house will be a difficult house. It's a Dushtana house. So, but it's not a yoga breaker. So it's still, if it is in connection with other sort of trinal or angular houses or lords, it will still create really good, strong Raja Yogas. So first house Mars will be assertive, aggressive. It will be definitely powerful, self-motivated. There is definitely, because it's a fiery house, fiery planet, there is definitely a motivation to just get on. You know, they want to be up and ready, get on with life, get on with the day. Obviously strong. They can be angry. They can get angry. They can be quick and impulsive. Everything is in a hurry, you know. But they're obviously strong and muscular in physique. They kind of get hot quickly as well, naturally, because it's just a situation of a lot of pitta going on there, and they could also injure their head as well, because obviously first house is not just the personality of the person, it's also the head, so they can actually at some point hurt their head. And it's funny because I'm just saying this and I'm thinking, you know, I don't really know my sister's time of birth. I've never really done her chart properly, but when she was younger, she did actually fall and hit the back of her head on the edge of a concrete step, and she did have massive sort of problems. You know, we had to take her to the emergency hospital, and she had to have some stitches. That would be a typical thing that could happen to an Aries ascendant. So she probably is an Aries ascendant. My mum just can't remember the time she was born. So, and I've never had to really look at her chart. So maybe I can just, you can read any chart from Aries anyway, so it's because it's a natural first house of the zodiac. And they can be bossy. They don't mean to be, but it's just they're quite direct. I think that's the nature of the Aries and nature of Mars. They like to initiate things. They can be successful as a result of that as well, because they could be a bit pioneering, particularly if they got planets in the middle kind of degrees of where Baron is, because the first part of Aries, 0 to 13 degrees 20, would be Ashwini. So they could be the people who really drive fast. They probably talk fast as well. Everything, I mean, if it is to do with the second house, probably more, but generally speaking, they can drive fast. Their actions and things can be quite fast. Normally, a lot of the Formula One drivers do have their fourth house in Aries. When they are a bit more in, if they are, say, in from 13 degrees 20 to 26 degrees 40, which is Bharani, that's more it's a Venus ruled one, whereas Ketu rules the first 13 degrees 20 of Ashwini. So, and Bharani will be different. They'll be much more, if it's ruled by Venus, obviously, so they'll be much more pioneering in that sense. They'll be doing things that are very different. If it's like the 10th house and Mars is in there, and if it's has any sort of aspect, or if it's connected with the moon or Venus, it could also be that they are like a gynecologist or something, or the midwifery could be, sixth house as well, midwifery, that kind of thing can be taking place with that nakshatra. And if it's the last few degrees, say 3 degrees 20 of up to 3 degrees 20, the last 3 degrees 20 of Aries, which will be 26 degrees 40 to 30 degrees. That will be last bit, which will be critical. So they could be quite into, I've seen it really good for journalism, actually. People who do with detail work, because it's really discerning and can literally cut anything that's, it's unnecessary. So they might be, if it's to do with the 3rd house and 10th house, they come together in that sense. They could be very good at critiquing speeches, instruction books for products, things like that. That could be a job like that, in that sense. Anyway, so they are pretty much, they're willful and courageous, obviously, because Mars in the 1st house, and it'll be in really good dignity. So they won't be scared of anything. They just say it as it is. But the good thing is with the Mars in Aries, very different to Mars in Scorpio. Mars in Scorpio, even though they're strong, they're not as brave as this. They might just go behind your back and get you. Whereas Mars in Aries, if you annoy them, they will punch you. They will just attack. If you do something that's like, they feel, they're not aggressive in that sense, but if you really push their buttons, they would not hesitate to hit you. They're quite logical. Obviously, they can be very technical minded as well. They could lead, be very sporty, because they'll have so much energy. It's a planet of energy and will, so it's amazing. Attacks from the front, as I said, military, police, firefighters, they could have this connected to their job, 6th house or 10th house. And clearly there's a problem though with when Mars is connected to 1st, 2nd, 4th, 7th, 8th or the 12th house, which is pretty much most of the houses, or sitting in any of them, because it will aspect them as well. These are houses of marriage, so they call it in India, they call it Kuja dosha. And it is because obviously they could be quite aggressive in relationships. Mars, I wouldn't really say Mars in Aries. I mean, to be honest, I know of people, and I have friends who've got Aries Mars. They are just aggressive. They are aggressive, definitely. So this is why that aggression should not be taken home. So they do really good to actually do things, sports, they do really well to do martial arts, because they need to actually have like a teacher who can really get them to focus their anger and utilize it in a good way. So if you have a child who has a strong Mars, get them to do like activities, rock climbing, putting tents up, going camping, rowing, anything. Really get them to exert themselves, because if they're focused on doing that outside of the home, is so much better. So they learn that home is more about like relaxing, rejuvenation, family. Hence the reason that can be aggressive, and obviously you wouldn't want your daughter marrying somebody who's got like a difficult Mars. If that was Mars in this, say, 8th house or some 8th house, or 11th house, or do you know what I mean? It's just, you just want to make sure that you don't want to have that when they're aggressive towards mother or children or their spouse, girlfriends, boyfriends, other people. You don't want that. So it's really good if it's in good condition, hasn't got bad aspects, then it should be pretty logical one, really. So but it's still aggressive. So sometimes I think because also this creates the Rushaka yoga as well, of greatness. They just like, it's difficult for these people to take advice of anyone, because they always think somebody else's problem, not theirs. They don't see that sometimes they really got to look in their own heart and see that they are causing issues and friction. They just can't see it. It's always somebody else's fault. So because they feel, they don't need to do any work. So it's difficult for that reason. generally speaking, when they do synastry in relationships, they don't really like to have Mars in those houses, because they're obviously, it just means that their marital happiness is compromised. So if you have that, you really need to work on that, really. And particularly if you find that you have a short fuse, you need to work and get it to work better. So you want to direct your energy to other things. Because you don't want to always be, it's not always about winning. And Mars in Aries, they just want to win every argument. Everything is like winning. So, but that's not the case at all. You know, sometimes it's good to just like let it be. But they because of that regimental ways and everything, they I mean, if the Jupiter is in really good condition, they get Jupiter aspect to it, they make really good lawyers. You know, imagine if you have somebody with really logical Mars fighting your corner for in the courts, you know, particularly, you know, if you know that somebody has done you wrong, they'd be really good for Amnesty International, things like that. So everything has its place, as they say. So that's some of the things you can look at for this placement. Just going to take a drink. Okay, let's have a look at other things that are happening with an Aries Lagna as well, because there's so much in everything that you can see. So Mercury is not going to be a good planet, neither is Saturn. So they're going to be quite difficult planets. Venus is the marker planet because it rules the 2nd and the 11th house. And unless obviously, and then Jupiter obviously is the Lord of the 9th and the 12th, and so forth. So Raja Yogas will happen clearly when, say, Jupiter is in Capricorn, so it's 9th Lord in the 10th or 10th Lord in the 9th, Saturn in Jupiter's sign. Those will be really good Raja Yogas. And probably the best Raja Yoga for them will be like if they have Sun exalted in their first house. That, I think, is probably the most blemishless one that you can have. I mean, they would just radiate goodness, wouldn't they, really? You want a leader like that. So, and also Sun in their 10th house will be really good. And if Sun and Moon exchange houses, a 4th house ruler in the 5th and 5th house ruler in the 4th, they'd be really good. Jupiter and Moon will also create really good Raja Yogas as well. And obviously 1st house ruler in Capricorn, that would be the best one of all, really. So clearly if Mercury will be connected to any of the yogas, good yogas, it will actually spoil it because it rules the 6th house. 6th house breaks any good yoga for them. But literally that will be the only difficult planet for them. Saturn, obviously, because it rules the 11th house, it's not easy. And Jupiter also rules the 12th house, but generally speaking, not too bad. If Mars and Venus occupy the 7th house, the earnings will be little. Because obviously Mars rules the 8th house, so it's always going to create expenses and issues there. So money will be up and down. If Mars will be in the 8th house, along with the Sun and Venus, so again, prosperity will be minimized as well, just by the sheer fact that they are in a Dushtana house, things like that. So that's how you can look at things. If Sun and Mars are connected, you know, again, there's going to be issues there because of the 8th house rulership of Mars. So this is how you actually see things, really. So you know that if Moon is, say, in the 4th house and Sun is in the ascendant, again, you know, that sort of shows really strength in mother and the parents, really. So that's pretty amazing. And Jupiter, for example, if Jupiter goes into the 7th house, that will also be a really nice yoga for them as well. Ninth house ruler in the 7th. But yeah, Mercury does give really bad results for Aries Lagna, just whether strong or weak will still be difficult. So Sun becomes their full benefic. Jupiter and Saturn will be so-so. And Moon will be good, as will Venus as well, actually. So, but Jupiter and Mars association in Cancer will obviously help. You know, Jupiter will be exalted in the 4th house, so massive Raja Yoga, and it will, if Mars is sitting with it, it will actually cancel that debilitation as well. So things like that is always worthy of knowing as well. So you know also that Mars Dasha is 7 years normally. Obviously, everybody it always depends. The dasha that you start your life with is always where your moon is. So if your moon is, say, in a Mars nakshatra, so then which will be like either Mrigashiram or Chitra or Dhanishta. So they will be. So you will actually start your. These are the nakshatras that Mars rules. They're actually quite gentle comparing to the actual planet itself. And in order to combat any issues to do with Mars, you want to really look at, you can wear like a ring, coral red ring in your on your right hand finger, ring finger. That will really help as well. Mars rules military, police, firefighters. It's also can be to do with law as well, particularly if it's in Venus or Jupiter sign, Sagittarius or Libra. And it rules all kind of chemicals and fire, metals, and it rules kind of things like furnaces, anything hot, barbecues. Normally good chefs as well will have something to do with 2nd house, and Mars will be affected as well in some kind of way as well. And it's obviously because it's a planet of logic. It'll be all kinds of engineering work will be to do with that as well, to do with Mars. So Mars, for example, also rules land and is Karaka of the 3rd house. So siblings, rules younger siblings. And if it sits in the 3rd house, then Mars in the 3rd house is not good. So you will have, at some point in your life, you will have some issues with your younger siblings. And but it does get better. You work on that and everything becomes better anyway. That's just the nature of astrology, helps us find all those things as well. And they make really good engineers, civil engineers, chemical workers. They could be working with electronics and electronic components, things like that. If they say Mercury and Mars, you know, they could be doing coding, stuff like that. So Mars and Mercury could be printing. Mercury is usually about copying and duplicity, so that kind of thing will happen as well. So Mars also rules printing, you know, just the ink as well. So, and I've just written some other notes here as well. So Mars will rule all the services, secret services as well, because obviously it's to do with bravery. And rules any form of metals, guns, knives, artillery, cannons, that kind of thing. It's obviously the warrior as well, isn't it? So that all the sports will be, but obviously it does really well with sort of singular ones. So like boxing, for example. So Muhammad Ali has Mars in the 10th house. I mean, that's so strong in Aries. It's just incredible. And it's got own house, and it's got Digbala as well, so it's got directional strength. So Mars is strong in the 10th house, and in the 4th house in Cancer is debilitated, but it will be acting as debilitated whatever the 4th house, but obviously the condition could be better. So it could be for a Taurus ascendant, if it was in the 4th house in Leo, it still has a debilitated feel to it, even though it's in great dignity in a friend's house. But yeah, generally speaking, it does. If it's Mars is sitting with Sun, there could be a governmental job, but more in the leadership, if you like, with that kind of thing. Particularly if the placement is strong for both planets. Jupiter and Mars can be a leader, general, high-ranking military person. And as we said, electricians also will have a good Mars. And technicians. It rules kind of machinery, generally speaking, as well. Big machines, small machines, like factories, plants, all that kind of stuff. So I mean, like agricultural plants will also be, they will be Mars, and obviously because it's Earth, so you'd be Saturn as well. You can actually think things like that. It's all to do with land, real estate, property, anything like that is ruled by Mars. So if you have a debilitated Mars in your chart, chances are you have to work hard at having your own property, really. But it doesn't mean that you can't have it. You just have to work at it, really. You have to look at the D4 as well for that in order to really come to the last, you can't really say that until you've checked everything properly. Mars in Cancer obviously is weak, but it's still aspecting the 10th house. So it's gives energy to the 10th house as well. So the person is quite likely to actually put a lot of effort into the 10th house as well. So I was saying they like the sports which are like sort of one-to-one, if you like boxing, wrestling, judo, things like that. And they do very well with things like to do with strength, weightlifting. It's so Martian, it's amazing. And I said the rules is the color is red. It's a coral red, really. So color of blood. That's the reason why you can get make your blood boil, that kind of thing that people say. So this is just a little something more about Aries. So I'll see you on the next video. Thank you very much for joining me today. Thank you.